What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host and producer, Logan Landers. Joining me here today from the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network to help me break down the 2024 Ole Miss Rebels is my guy, Jay McLevin. Jay, how you doing, my brother? And what do you like about Ole Miss this year?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Logan, they definitely have a schedule. The more I look at it, the more it's an interesting schedule to me. When you look at it, it kind of starts off with like Furman, Middle Tennessee, whatever, Wake Forest, okay, whatever, Georgia Southern, whatever. And then it starts to get a little bit interesting. Then you start seeing like Kentucky Wildcats. Oh, that could be a potential one. And then you saw South Carolina, and then you see LSU. Start to perk up a little bit. That could be a good one. And then you get into then you start getting to Oklahoma, and then you get Arkansas, and then you kind of get back into Georgia, only to wrap it up with Florida and then Mississippi State. So they got at least a good 3 or 4 games in there, if not 5, that could be potential. Hard to get wins. So, could they go 9 wins? Sure. Could they go 10 wins? Sure. This Ole Miss team, they have a talented bunch over there under Lane Kiffin. He very rarely does he ever turn out a team that's not offensively ready to go, especially under this Jackson Dart quarterback. Most of the talent is around their wide receiver, tight end, wide receiver Harris, and then tight end and Layden Prescorn. That's really kind of where his main luxury is in those 2 guys, and I'm sure he's going to get the ball quite often to them. When you look at their last, I think the last transfers that came in, their edge runner they got in Prescorn, and then that other guy, and Logan, I swear I cannot get these names right. Uman Millennium. I can't even pronounce even how to spell that, but they've got a couple of really good guys over there on defense as well as I'll never. I know it's Walter Nolan. That's about the only one.
There you go. And I know you're talking about. I know you're talking about
name I could probably pronounce on that one, Logan. But their defense, is going to need a little bit of work. But that offensive line, if that offensive line can hold up, this team could be really, really good. Last year, I think they were ranked 105 in that offensive line. Obviously, the offensive line is doing much better than what they did last year. But if they can get that offensive line to hold up, they could do something special because one of their strengths is they have a good top-tier quarterback, and then they also have great wide receivers, and they have good running backs, and top 5 running backs. So they really just have to really support that offense and not give it too much by the way of their defense. When you look at Dart, the guy gave you almost 3,400 yards, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So he had a really good stat line. When you look at Harris, Watkins, and the tight end Prescorn, collectively they give you 2,100 yards or 2,175 and 15 touchdowns between the 3 of them. So, Logan, this team has what it takes to get the job done. They just have to make sure they can pull it together at the right time.
Yeah, it's hard for this team in a sense because they're coming off their best season ever, right? First ever 11-win year was last year. So you got a lot of expectations. It helps that you bring back a lot of people, as you said, including 3 guys on your line. You're also bringing over a talented offensive lineman and Nate Kalepo, who started 15 games for Washington last year, bringing him over from the transfer portal, which is really helping them out. I think their offense is going to be solid. Jackson Dart, we know he's come back for his senior year. A lot of people were kind of surprised by that. Of course, this was a very quarterback-dominant draft in 23. So he probably said, all right, let me go ball out for another year. That way I can raise my stock even more. That's kind of what I see with Jackson. Rest of this team, like you mentioned, have a good a good running back in Bentley. I think he'll have another solid year, another senior. And then, of course, you mentioned Trey Harris as well, who's doing his thing. And Caden Prescorn, as well as some other guys who they got in their lineup, like Jordan Watkins, Antoine Wells Jr., of course, Deion Smith, Aiden Williams, and Caden Lee, just to name a few who can go out there and get you some points, get you some yards if need be. Now, the defense, a lot of different names on this team, Jay. Not saying it's completely brand new, but they've added a lot of talent, from the draft, from recruiting, and for transfers and whatnot. And like you said, you mentioned Princely Umanmiele coming over from Florida, a guy who was all SEC last year. Big pickup there. You're also getting former Alabama cornerback and Trey Amos, Arkansas linebacker Chris Paul Jr. as well. All of those guys were really effective last year, Jay. And if they can get it right with Pete Golding as their D coordinator, they can figure something out. You bring back guys like Jared Ivey, JJ Peggs as well. Same with John Saunders Jr. If they can just keep it rolling, right? And kind of like a little bit what we talked about, with Penn State in a sense, because with Ole Miss, man, it's tough. It's tough in the SEC, man. They have, and like you said, they're coming off their best season ever. Their first ever 11-win year. Can't get any better than that, other than just to win it all, basically. But a team who last year we know they struggled. Their 2 losses on the year were to Alabama and, of course, where they got absolutely blown out by Georgia. Right. But they ended the year on a high note. They won the Peach Bowl against Penn State in a really good lineup there. They won 38-25, high-scoring matchup. Finished the year 11-2 overall, with both of those losses coming in their division there in the SEC. But like you said, when I look at this team, ups and downs for this year. Really easy starts of the year. Kentucky is kind of what's going to kick things off because Kentucky got a solid lineup. Then you got teams, like Oklahoma who's going to give them fits, Georgia as well. End the year with Mississippi State, which is always a rivalry game. So that's always going to be fun to watch. But, Jay, do you think this is a top 12 team? Do you think they get into the playoffs?
Man, that's a good one. In all honesty, I think they pushed the envelope. They got a really tough schedule towards the end of it. I'm going to say yes, Logan, but I think it's going to be tough.
I think they'll sneak in.
Yeah.
It's rougher, man, in the SEC. All the other teams and all the other conferences were probably happy as a clam that we're moving to 12 teams. Hooray! Then the SEC said, you know what? Here comes 2 more. Here comes Texas. Here comes Oklahoma to mess everything up for y'all, make it even tougher for y'all to get in these playoffs. But, I easily could see Ole Miss getting into this. It wouldn't shock me one bit. They got Lane Kiffin, very offensive-minded, right, who can get things done. If their defense can shore up this year, which, like I said, they're bringing over a lot of different players, that's going to be the telling sign for me. Can they get that defense up to snub with their offense? It remains to be seen, Jay. We'll see this upcoming year in 2024. Well, hey, I appreciate you, my friend, coming on the show, talking about Ole Miss and their team preview. I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. If you want to see any of the other team previews me and Jay have done, you can go over and check us out on Facebook and on YouTube. And until next time, get out there, enjoy your weekends, and we'll talk to you again on another live episode.